and members of the National Assembly and the aviators and workers here at Airbus. It's incredible.
It's so good to be here. It's so much fun. And I only have 5 minutes. No, I have a little more, but I want to provide a bit of context, because I'm going to pick up on a few things that Tony said much better than me because he's lived it. But we're here today because of the combined power of entrepreneurs, of builders, and yes, of governments. Governments that have fallen on the brilliant side of that line between brilliance and stupidity, I'd like to think. The power that's building a stronger, more resilient, more independent Canada. A power that's deepening the links between Canada and ASEAN. Very important point, deepening the links between Canada and ASEAN to the benefit of our workers, our families, our tourists, our business people. And the very first link in that chain is the entrepreneur, the risk taker, the builder. And so let me salute Tony Fernandez, who is an entrepreneur extraordinaire, who took the risk, took a series of risks, and that's why we're all gathered today for a brighter future. And Tony and I have known each other for a bit, but when we last saw each other was in October in Kuala Lumpur for ASEAN. And we were discussing the various crises that we'd been through in the past, financial crises, COVID. And we discussed how best to respond to a world that's changing even more dramatically in many respects than then. And we shared a vision of deepening ties between those countries that in this crisis that we're still living through are choosing to build in the face of adversity. Countries that have the confidence to open up, to link their economies, to invest in their workers, to move forward, not turn back. And I emphasized to Tony that Canada is once again building big at home and creating reliable partnerships abroad, including very much with ASEAN. So Tony, thank you. Thank you for the trust you're placing in Canadian workers, in Quebec, in Mirabel. You're choosing the best at exactly the right time. And thank you for recognizing, as you did in your words, the Canadian entrepreneurs and risk takers, including Pierre Baudouin, who created the C-Series, the predecessor, that terrible plane, apparently, transformed immediately, overnight. The C-Series, the predecessor of the A220. And thank you, above all, to the workers and builders at Airbus that are now making it happen. Merci à vous. Merci à vous, Lars.
And thank you, Lars.
Guillaume.
Thank you, Guillaume. And the Airbus team for your leadership. And especially I want to thank the workers here in Mirabel and right across Canada who are building excellence across this country in the aviation sector. Canada has always been a country of builders. In the past, in February 1909, a young engineer by the name of J.A.D. McCurdy took off from the sea ice at Lac Brador. This was the first motorized flight in the history of Canada and the first in the entire British Empire. McCurdy was a builder and a man of bold vision. He devoted himself to projects that others considered impossible. For example, the first flight between Florida and Cuba. In 1928, McCurdy left behind his aerospace exploits to build this industry. He set up shop in Montreal, founded Reed Aircraft, which was one of the first large aeronautic builders in Quebec. And that site that he developed became Canadair, then Bombardier, the same lineage that gave us the C-Series, which has now become the A220 that we are celebrating today. Today, the aerospace industry in includes more than 60,000 workers and generates approximately $15 billion for our economy every year. It is that same conviction that ambition and determination can change the course of a country's history that we are mobilizing today.
Consistent with the conversation we had a few months ago, amidst this global turmoil, Canada, Quebec, we're focused on what we can control. We're building our strength at home. We're diversifying our trade with reliable partners abroad. We're catalyzing across Canada $1 trillion in total investment over the next 5 years across clean and conventional energy, trade corridors, critical minerals, AI, aerospace, defense, and beyond. We're helping to transform and train our workforce, including through last week's announcement of a $6 billion investment in Team Canada Strong to recruit, to train, to hire over 100,000 new skilled trades workers in the next 5 years. Et lundi, nous soutenons également,
and we are also, thanks to the Minister of Industry, we are also supporting the workers and businesses affected by unjustified U.S. tariffs. We launched a new funding program of some $1 billion for the steel, aluminum, and copper sectors, as well as providing a regional response fund of $500 million covering all sectors of the economy, including $105 million for Quebec.
New opportunities for Canadian businesses through more than 20 economic and security partnerships that we've signed on 5 continents in less than a year. We're working towards concluding comprehensive free trade agreements with India, with Thailand, the Philippines, Mercosur, and above all, ASEAN this year. Foreign direct investment into Canada is already at its highest level in nearly 2 decades. It's running at twice the rate on a per capita basis as our nearest G7 competitor. And we're just getting started. Just like you. Just like Tony.
And right across the world, our partners are seeing what Canada is building, as well as the certainty and the stability that we can offer. Businesses choose Canada because we have what the world is looking for. Quebec has what the world is looking for, and here in Mirabel, the workers and innovators are building what the world is looking for. I am very, very pleased that AirAsia is moving forward with the most important order of Canadian aircraft in the history of this country. And I'm so pleased that these airliners will be built right here. This agreement really marks a turning point for the Quebec aerospace industry, an industry that is dynamic and world-class. For thousands of engineers, electricians, and welders, and IT specialists, this represents well-paid and stimulating jobs, as well as an opportunity to build a world-class airliner, which will connect millions of people to new opportunities, more destinations, and more time with their loved ones.
The A220-300 is a showcase of Canadian ingenuity. Lower fuel consumption, reduced emissions, smaller noise footprint, advanced propulsion system, lightweight materials, cutting-edge aerodynamics, built, and you said, Lars, as everyone here knows, with the clean sheet design. I know that it was built with a clean sheet design. I have no idea what that means, but it says that right there. I have an idea. I do have an idea. I don't really know. Developed by scratch by Canadian workers.
Thanks to more than 5,000 highly skilled workers Canada is now the site of the most significant Airbus A220 program outside of Europe. That is a resounding success.
Airbus's Canadian workforce has more than doubled. You've harnessed world-class Canadian talent across engineering, computer science, aeronautics, and including through deep collaborations with our institutions, including McGill, University of Waterloo, many others. This facility, this Mirabel facility, is a cornerstone of that success, combining engineering, advanced research, administration, final assembly in one integrated operation. But it's also important to recognize that behind every aircraft assembled here is a broader network of suppliers, builders, technicians, innovators across the country. Steel workers fulfilling new orders with the certainty of a stable paycheck. Engineering graduates knowing they have the first opportunity to apply their skills. Students knowing they should go into engineering to be part of this industry. Mechanics who transform blueprints into the industrial marvels we see on the floor. All working together to deliver world-class aircraft. In the end, as at the beginning, it's the entrepreneurs who imagine, the workers who build, and the governments, including very much the government of Quebec, the governments who back them. That's how Canada and Quebec win. That is what the world is choosing today. Et c'est comment nous construisons
and that is how we build a stronger, more independent, and more resilient economy. Mirabel strong, Quebec strong, Canada strong, for the benefit of all. Thank you very much.
You've been listening to Prime Minister Mark Carney speaking in Mirabel, Quebec about what is being described as the biggest order of Canadian aircraft in the history of Canada. 150 Airbus 220s built, designed and built in Quebec, in Canada. Let's listen to the Premier of Quebec, the new Premier of Quebec, Christine Fréchette.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. What a wonderful day, an inspiring day, full of bold action. Prime Minister Carney, I'm so happy to see you again. Mr. Canon, Minister Joly, dear Bernard, dear colleagues from the National Assembly, and thank you all for being here in such large numbers. My congratulations to Mr. Lars Wagner and to Mr. Guillaume Chevachon and Mr. Tony Fernandez. My greetings also to all the workers, to all the people who are working to create this success. It's thanks to you. That's why we're here today. It's because you invested your energy, your creativity, and your effort, and this is the exemplary result that we're seeing today. I also want to convey my greetings to all the people who are with us online. So it's a great day today, a great day for the aerospace industry, and a great day as well for our ability as a nation to make ambitious choices and to follow through. Because the A220, as you may recall, is first and foremost a success for Quebec engineering. It was here, it was developed and built. Now, as a government, we decided to protect this, to develop this industry, and to make sure it could crisscross the world.
For several years now, our government has made a clear choice to invest here in Quebec to build a strong, forward-looking aerospace industry. Et les investissements qu'on a menés,
and the investments we made
dans le dossier de la société en commandite Airbus Canada s'inscrivent dans
are
une
part and
perspective de
parcel
développement économique
of
à long terme.
a long-term economic development plan. Today, we are
The AirAsia order
seeking
is
the
a
fruit of that.
resounding validation of Quebec's vision for Mirabel and for the aerospace sector. Cette commande de 150
This
appareils
order of
Airbus
150
A220
Airbus A220 airliners by AirAsia is the largest order, and as Mr. Carney emphasized, this is the largest order ever received through the Quebec aeronautics industry.
Non seulement ce nouveau client,
not only is this a new customer, but you're consolidating your orders and diversifying the Asian market. And we know that we're in a period now where we must diversify our export markets and tighten up our alliances beyond the United States. So we are looking to you. And in this political context, more than ever, we must reduce our dependence on a single market and diversify. Quebec is a leader in the aerospace industry, and our strength is our unique ability to design, develop, certify, and manufacture planes among the most advanced aircraft in the world. And you can count on the Quebec government to defend that industry, and because it's strategic to our economy. And I can assure you that we will seek those contracts as well through the federal government, because here is where those investments are being made in the aerospace industry, and now it is time that we use that to develop the industry over the long term. And that's why Montreal must also play a central role on the international scene through the Defense Bank, which will increase that resilience.
La métropole québécoise So
we have all the assets we need to ensure that that financial institution can support us, and especially the aerospace industry. We have the expertise financially and in the aerospace sector, so I think that is the great choice to take. And here in Mirabel, it's 4,000 jobs. And this new order will bring new dynamism to the economy in Mirabel, the Canadian economy, and the Quebec economy. Once again, we are demonstrating that we are capable of delivering the goods, that Quebec is ambitious, and that it does deliver the goods. So I want to thank Airbus Canada, and I hope you will continue to build the aerospace.
And you've been listening to Christine Frichette, the Premier of Quebec, beaming, all smiles today. The CBC's Karina Roman listening in with me, and that is because, as you heard there, Airbus is, AirAsia is buying or ordering 150 Airbus A220 planes that were designed and built to be, if the plane exists, to be built in Mirabel, Quebec, which is the biggest order ever for a Canadian plane. And so, Karina, the Prime Minister was also there, and this is a day when politicians want to take to a podium and speak and kind of tout.
Lots of hugs going around too.
Exactly.
Yes, the Prime Minister even hugged Tony Fernandez. Oh, and now they're all going up on stage. So yes, there's lots of positive feelings in that room.
And so let's talk a little bit about what this is, what this means, what this could mean. Lots of questions out there, but the headline is that it is the biggest order, 150 A220s to be built in Mirabel, Quebec. And then what we heard there from the Prime Minister and the Premier of Quebec.
Yes. So, and from the news release, it also says that the facility in Mirabel is the most comprehensive commercial aircraft manufacturing site outside of Europe. So this really is obviously about the province, about the actual plant, about Canada, but it's about entrenching the aerospace industry there, but also hopefully growing it. Although, as you said, it's not like they have a stockpile of 150 planes. So they still have to build them. And that is going to be one of the challenges, because there are supply chain, long-standing supply chain issues. There's also a back order or a backlog of orders. But as you heard, it's all good news according to the people in that room. They're not going to talk about what might or might not happen going forward. Interesting, at the beginning we heard, and you see that man clapping there, that's one of the CEOs, one of the executives of Airbus who spoke. I'm blanking on his last name, although his first name is Lars. He talked about how this is a multi-win deal. Again, only really looking at the positives, although admittedly there are a lot of positives in this announcement. So let's have a listen to what he had to say.
Today is a win-win-win-win day. A win, obviously, for Asia. Tony, you're getting the plane, a very nice plane, as soon as possible. A win as well for Canada and Quebec. It's a massive step towards your competencies and capabilities in this region. Is a win for all of us, for you, the colleagues here in Mirabel, as this is a secured employment for the years to come. And it's also a win for Airbus, as it brings us closer to our growth trajectory. And we might even do more with that fantastic platform.
So very happy on their behalf, obviously, and saying that there's benefits just all around. Now, when the Prime Minister spoke, Andrew, it really was working in this announcement, and there's the Canadians.
That is Tony Fernandez, who is the CEO of AirAsia, who is putting on a Habs jersey, and this is a big night for the
As
Habs.
you do in Montreal during the playoffs.
Yes. Okay. So there you go.
I was just going to say that the Prime Minister worked in this announcement as an example of his, the wider plan to diversify Canada's markets and trade. He talked about amidst global turmoil, Canada's focused on what we can control, building our strength at home. He talked about, the plans in the last spring fiscal update to train and help hire and pay for apprentices in the trades. So all of this fitting into his wider message, where, even though they did announce that this is going ahead, this is not going ahead with federal funding, at least not at this point. This particular order is very much just a commercial agreement. Of course, there is financing for the A220 program by the Quebec government. But the Prime Minister talking about how, not so much how this came to be, but how this fits in with what he's trying to do. And he talked about meeting Tony Fernandez at the ASEAN conference.
And sorry to interrupt there, Karina, but it looks like they're taking questions. The Premier, the Prime Minister, let's listen.
Je voulais savoir... Oui, bonjour. Compte tenu de l'ampleur de la commande, je voulais savoir premièrement à quel moment sont prévues les livraisons et aussi savoir si vous allez être capable de tout assembler ça ici à Mirabel ou si vous allez devoir peut-être compter sur votre installation américaine.
Je vous remercie. Tous les avions qui ont été commandés par AirAsia's aujourd'hui, les 150 avions, seront fabriqués et livrés depuis notre site de Mirabel, où on a investi massivement pour pouvoir être capable de répondre à une demande croissante sur le marché de la 220. Et donc je suis ravi d'annoncer qu'effectivement l'ensemble des 150 avions seront fabriqués et livrés depuis ce site de Mirabel. Alors, quand c'est qu'on va livrer les premiers avions? En général, on laisse la primeur à notre client de l'annoncer. Et donc bien sûr, Tony, if you want to say when you are supposed to take the first aircraft delivery, you are more than happy to say it because this was part of a question he asked.
Well, we hope in the first quarter of 2028. We're now speccing the aircraft, just seats to be found. Hopefully, maybe if we're really lucky, late 27, but I think first quarter 28.
Merci.
Pour M. Carney, je voulais savoir si le gouvernement fédéral qui avait
whether the federal government, I know you invested in the C series, but are you interested in investing in the A220? Well, thank you for that question. The former federal government did invest $200 million in the C series. No shares, however. But when it comes to the possibility, the exciting possibility of having the A220-300 The stretch version. Yes, we're working in very close cooperation with the Quebec government and Airbus in order to achieve that objective here in Mirabel for Quebec and Canada.
Oui, bonjour, Julien Arsenault de la Presse. My question is for Mr. Fernandez. I was curious to see it's a very large order, one of the biggest order for the A220. Why did you feel it was the time to also make a plea for the larger version of this plane?
You know, my philosophy has been built on a very strong network. And two of the driving factors of AirAsia's network, 60% of our routes are routes that were never done before. We go into secondary and tertiary cities. And the second kind of underlying principle of what we do is frequency. So obviously we've bought a lot of 321s, which have 244 seats. Not every route pairing could fill 244 seats. And even in the thick routes, let's say Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, where we fly, every half an hour, some of those flights wouldn't take 244 seats. So having an aircraft at 160 seats enables us to actually improve our margin by about 2 to 3 points and also build a much deeper network. Kuala Lumpur has gone from nowhere to become the #1 hub in Asia and the #4 hub in the world due to connectivity. The 220 will make that so much bigger for us. So that's why we chose the aircraft, for the size and the ability. And there's one more reason. The amazing thing about this aircraft is, when I bought the 320ceo, it only flew 4 hours. This aircraft can fly up to 7 hours. And in Asia, that has a lot of value for us as well.
Question suivante.
Sorry, I couldn't.
Why would you need a larger version of the aircraft?
Oh, because we bought a lot of A320s, and those aircraft are coming to the end of their life. And so 180 seats, if Airbus makes that 180 seats, that's a perfect replacement. So again, we as low-cost airlines generally don't like complexity, but now we'll only have two types of aircraft, 220 and the 321. So we really hope that the 220-500 is built.
Prochaine question, next question.
Good afternoon, Natalia Beixel from CBC News. Question for Prime Minister Mark Carney. Honda is reportedly suspending plans for a $15 billion EV plant in Ontario indefinitely. Has the government been informed of this decision, and how do you convince companies to invest here in Canada when there's so much global uncertainty?
Well, thank you for your question. First, we're in constant contact with all the major automakers, like in other words, currently producing in Canada, and potential. And that includes Honda. So we're in discussions with them constantly. And look, there's no announcement today, to be clear. How do we convince companies to invest in Canada? A couple of things. One is our country has twice the rate of investment, foreign direct investment, than the United States, adjusted for the size of our population, twice the rate. We're at the highest level of foreign direct investment in Canada for 20 years. What you're seeing today, thank you, grâce aux travailleurs et travailleuses ici,
thanks to the workers and innovators here and Airbus.
Confidence in the innovation and commitment of the Quebec government, but of the workers here. How do we continue to convince and continue to increase that investment? Connectivity, to borrow Tony's word, those trade deals, those 20 deals, the deal with ASEAN, the deal with India, moving forward like that. Confidence, le mot de Madame la Première Ministre du Québec,
the term used by the Premier of Quebec, bold action. This is the time to be bold.
Big, to have confidence, move forward, open up. That's what we're doing, and we'll continue to get that investment despite the efforts of the Americans. Thank you.
Next question, prochaine question.
Harry North for the Montreal Gazette. My question is for the Prime Minister. and it is two parts. Just how important is the Quebec aerospace industry in your wider foreign policy right now?
Yeah.
And second part is, amid that trade dispute with the US, how important is a potential Stanley Cup run for the Habs at this time?
Okay, I'll enjoy the second part of that. Look, I'll enjoy both parts. How important is the Quebec aerospace industry? Incredibly important. This is one of, I don't think I want to rank our most important industries, but it is amongst, if not the most important industry in Canada. It has huge spillover benefits, tentacles, 60,000 people directly employed in the aerospace industry, 250,000 more broadly, but then you get the multiplier effects of that. In our international discussions, I was just in Armenia meeting with a number of European leaders. In every single discussion, we discussed aerospace partnerships, some of them on the defense side, some of them on the civilian side, some of them stretching into space, where there is expertise as well. And how important is the Habs run? I mean, yeah, there's not much more important. And I look forward to calling the President of the United States and sending him his Habs jersey.
Next question. Prochaine question. Mathieu.
Mathieu Dion, Bloomberg News. My question is for you, Mr. Carney. Regarding the privatization, I'm going to stick to the aerospace industry at least. So regarding the privatization of Canadian airports as a way to capitalize your sovereign wealth fund, do you have any considerations on this front? Any timeline? And could foreign investors have an equity stakes in Canadian airports, as we can see with pension funds elsewhere in the world?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One is that we see examples today of a government, the Quebec government, with an investment in an important industry that's helping to make this possible. You see examples, and you will see examples of the Canadian government creating enormous opportunities across the energy sector, across transportation, Port de Contrecoeur, par exemple, more broadly, critical minerals, etc. We think that Canadians should benefit alongside, where appropriate, should benefit alongside the value that's created by the private sector in those. As a junior partner alongside, but not controlling stake. First point. Second, and I'll be quick, with respect to the airports, we're looking, as we've said, we will look at options for the airports so that they better serve Canadians, and so that the capital that is tied up in those airports can be redeployed potentially in other ventures that will grow our economy, grow the Quebec economy, grow the Canadian economy. And that's the core of the idea. Thank you.
As for foreign investors.
And for foreign investors, yes, look, we are wide open for foreign investment. We're seeing foreign investment. Airbus, we are living in foreign investment right here. This is foreign investment in our country. We're going to see a lot more of it. We are the #1 destination for foreign direct investment by a mile in the G7, adjusted for the size of our economy, and we want to extend that lead. Thank you.
Prochaine question. Next question.
Elisabeth Laplante de TVA Nouvelle. Une question pour Monsieur Chevasson sur la rentabilité du programme.
My question is for Mr. Chevasson sur the profitability of the program. And will this agreement allow you to create jobs? Well, we have already created many jobs over the last 3 years, and we've increased by 50% the people working for Airbus here. 200,000 people were hired over the last few years, so we're going to continue to invest and create jobs. So that's the first point. We need to continue to develop the market itself. In terms of our profitability, it's very critical. We're not there yet, but we're getting closer. And a vote of confidence from this company is part of the factors that will help us to achieve our goal. Obviously, we still have some work to do. It's a priority for the program, and we are getting close to our goal quickly. Mr. Chevachon, I'd just like to clarify what you said about the 150 airliners to be built in Mirabel. Are you going to be changing your schedule for delivery as a result of this new order? Well, it's a challenge for our collaborators. But we increased by 25% last year. And today we are receiving this order, and we're confident that we can deliver this order. We're continuing to recruit people, so we're not behind on our plans, and we're looking at a big increase. And we want to be able to build 13 aircraft a month, and so in 2 years, we want to hit 13 per month, and 2/3 of those aircraft will be produced right here in Mirabel. And the AirAsia product will be built here as well.
With the Canadian press, my question's for Mr. Carney. So there are 9 Senate seats vacant right now, and another 6 senators retiring this year. When do you intend to begin appointing senators, and do you intend to follow Justin Trudeau's process or to return to more overtly partisan appointments?
Thank you for your question. We will be appointing senators in due course, and I will take into account the advice of the Independent Advisory Committee that was established by my predecessor. Thank you.
Next question, prochaine question.
Bonjour, Christophe Godon d'Info Mirabel. Ma question est pour Mark Carney.
My question is for Prime Minister Carney. The aerospace industry was not part of the recent update. So what does the government intend to do to ensure the prosperity, the future prosperity of this industry? Well, first of all, it was an economic update, not a budget, and there are a number of elements in the update with respect to financing, for example, the super deduction. And the fact is that now Canada has it's the marginal rate.
Qui pose, si je peux dire comme ça, c'est le taux qui pose. Alors, nouvelle phrase peut-être? Non? OK. Mais
so,
ça, c'est 4,5 points.
It's 4.5 points
plus bas que les États-Unis.
Lower than the U.S. rate.
C'est une tiers de moyenne du G7.
That's 1/3 of the average in the G7. It's the latest, it's the lowest marginal rate in the G7.
Alors, mais on fait beaucoup. On a un fonds stratégique.
But we have a strategic fund.
La compagnie d'exportation et développement.
Export Development Canada is doing a lot and working quite a bit with the Quebec government as well in that sector.
Time for one last question. Dernière question.
It's Nick Van Pratt from the Globe and Mail. The question is for Prime Minister Carney. The CEO of Cenovus Energy this morning made some comments. I'm not sure if you saw them, but he said the national dialogue on further development of the oil sands has been myopically focused on the climate agenda and climate policy, and then investors have left Canada for more competitive jurisdictions. I'd like your thoughts, please.
Well, I start by observing the following, which is that the oil production in Canada, largely driven by the oil sands, is at a record high. It's moved up over the course of the last decade from 3 million barrels per day to over 5 million barrels per day. That brings great benefits to the country, but it also is a source of our emissions, is one of the biggest sources of our national emissions. And one of the factors, I'm going to anchor this in the discussion today, or what we're celebrating today, what AirAsia is doing, what Tony Fernandez has helped to lead. When you look at Asia, biggest fastest growing market, crucial to the future of Quebec, future of Canada, is building those links. What they're looking for, and you see it in the choice of the A220, is not just efficiency, but low emissions. One of the selling factors is that emissions are 25% lower than previous, because they're looking for that efficiency over the long haul. And one of the factors, one of the key selling points for Canadian conventional energy will be that it's low risk. Canada is the lowest risk jurisdiction. Low cost, low marginal cost. We are continuing to work on that. And low carbon. And so getting the emissions down will put us in a position. And I will tell you that from direct conversations with a series of governments across Asia, that's what they're looking for the medium term. That's what the Government of Canada is working with the Government of Alberta in order to produce a comprehensive approach through our MOU. We're making good progress on that, and that's going to make the oil sands more competitive. It's going to make Canada more competitive as part of a much bigger energy transition that's happening. And I can't speak, and I'll finish here, being in Quebec, without observing just the fundamental strength that's given from the clean energy that comes from this great province. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Merci à tous nos participants. C'est ce qui m'a fait à notre période de questions. This puts an end to our press conference. Thank you.
All right, you've been listening to Prime Minister Mark Carney as well as the head of Airbus Canada. We heard from the head of AirAsia, who has ordered 150 A220 planes to be built in Mirabel, Quebec. We also heard from the Premier of Quebec, all touting this deal as being very important for Quebec and Canada's economy. Let's bring in the CBC's Karina Roman, who was listening in from Ottawa. So Karina, tell me kind of what stood out there from that.
Well, first I learned a lot about airplanes. For those of us, I thought it was interesting that on the announcement itself, that Tony Fernandez, who is the head of AirAsia, says that he's hoping to get the planes by the first quarter of 2028. That's pretty soon to get, I don't know how many by that point, but still, considering the challenges in the past of getting planes built in a timely fashion. And just also learning from him his business structure in terms of how many people fit on certain planes and why that's good for certain routes. That was actually quite interesting. But listening to the Prime Minister, again, looping in this announcement, this unarguably good news announcement as part of this wider strategy, economic strategy, as proof of success of some of the deals that he has made, the connections, as he said, he has made on his many travels, those 20-plus deals or MOUs that he has signed around the world. He did also answer questions that had nothing to do with the announcement, including a question on Honda and its what seems to be an indefinite suspension of its EV plant that it was going to go ahead with in Alliston, Ontario. The Prime Minister saying, not confirming that there's any kind of announcement. Instead, he says there's no announcement today on that, just that they're in constant contact with auto producers like Honda, and then sort of talking about how there's still, good news in both the auto sector and industry and foreign direct investment in terms of the economy. So not really actually addressing the question or the concerns about Honda as specifically as, let's say, the finance minister did earlier today, where he said this is part of a global slight downturn in demand for EVs. He did talk about competitiveness of Canada, and then I just want to mention the oil climate question he faced there at the end, saying that, basically saying that a focus on carbon emissions and climate does not make the oil sands and that sector less competitive, because it is actually what those markets are looking for. They're looking for clean energy, and that can include oil and gas if it's done in the most clean way possible.
And also saying Canada is the lowest risk in terms of a country to invest. Karina, thank you. CBC's Karina Roman, live in Ottawa. I want to bring in John Graddick now. He is a faculty lecturer in aviation management at McGill, and he's joining us from Montreal. John, I appreciate you taking the time. So how big, we heard there, it was all smiles, lots of applause. Tell me, how big of a deal is this for the aviation sector in Quebec and Canada as a whole, this order for 150 A220s?
Well, it confirms Airbus's belief that this airplane is really a game changer around the world. At Airbus, when they took over the program from Bombardier, Bombardier made a great sales pitch about what this airplane can do and what they were designed to do, and the operating characteristics, the fuel savings, the emissions levels, and all of that stuff really has made it a success that it is. We're now sitting at 900 airplanes that have been either ordered or delivered. This is another large order, the largest order for the A220. And I think that Mr. Fernandez said if he could get some airplanes built even more quickly, he'd order another 150. So the big issue for Airbus is delivery dates. So that production line that the order book, like I said, is 450 to be delivered. For Mr. Fernandez to get these airplanes in 2028, somebody's going to have to get moved out of the way, because that, to me, would be the earliest I could have seen Fernandez's airplanes were 2031, 2032. Because that's the speed by which Airbus produces airplanes in Mirabel. So something has to give, something has to change in the way that we produce airplanes, or customers are going to have to get pushed aside at later delivery in order for Mr. Fernandez to get his 2028.
Because some questions were asked, like, does this mean new jobs? Is this a new production line? And we didn't really get an answer to that, other than we heard from Airbus Canada head saying we're confident that we can start delivering them by 2028, but that's just start delivering the planes. That's not all of them, obviously, all at once. And he says we continue to recruit. So I don't know exactly what that means. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that, they are recruiting. I think that if you look at the want ads we have in Montreal in the aerospace community, the biggest employer putting those want ads out is by a long shot Airbus. Mm-hmm. So they're really looking for talent and qualified talent. So if you have an aerospace background, Montreal is a place to do it, because our friends at Airbus are going to pick you up pretty quickly. But I think that it kind of shows that there are some chinks in the armor at Airbus Mirabel, both in terms of staffing, in terms of supply chain, in terms of building these airplanes. They're stuck at 7.75 airplanes a month. They've been stuck at that level now for a couple of years. They've been trying as hard as they can to increase it. They're having a hard time increasing it. But this order is going to put a lot of pressure on, one, hiring, two, getting that supply chain up to be able to produce 12, if not 14 airplanes a month. And that's key to the success of this product.
And let's talk a little bit about AirAsia. Is this a sound company? Is this a sound order? Is everything okay? Or how would you characterize it?
Welcome to the airline business.
Yeah.
I always thought Spirit was a good carrier, and they knew what to do. So where are they today? Yeah, so it's a very fickle business. And I think that, we're seeing AirAsia starting to park airplanes as a result of fuel problems these days in terms of availability and in terms of price. So they're adjusting it, that short-term reaction to what's going on in the industry. But they are a successful business. They are the largest ULCC, ultra low-cost carrier in Asia. They've really built Kuala Lumpur Airport up as a super hub. And Fernandez knows the business. If there's anybody who can cut a deal with Airbus for a good price on the airplane and can buy large numbers of airplanes, it's Tony Fernandez, and he delivered. So I believe that there's a track record for AirAsia that I think is nice to see them buying the 220. There are a number of other carriers who have been less sure about, but AirAsia, good housekeeping stamp of approval on that order.
And let me ask you a little bit about financial support from provincial and federal governments. We know that the Quebec government has a 25% stake in the A220 program. The federal government hasn't specifically invested in this aircraft, but did in the predecessor, in the C series. And then we heard a question to the Prime Minister about whether there would be federal money. And he said, we continue to work closely with the Quebec government and Airbus to achieve that objective when it comes to this order. What does that mean? Can you parse that?
Yeah, I can. What that means to me is that Airbus has put money into it. Now they're basically saying, let the marketplace, let our suppliers, let our supply chain, help us achieve the value that our investment is going to bring. The Quebec government's $2.1 billion, I think the Quebec government has written off that whole investment. I don't think we're going to get much of a return on that investment. We're in there for 25%, and they could, Airbus can buy us out in 2032, I believe. But there's no value in it, so there's not much. We'll get our shares back. We'll get some token values back for it, but there is no value left in the equity side of Airbus for the Quebec population. So the big question for the federal government and the provincial government is that supply chain needs some serious money, and it's not going to come from Airbus. Airbus has said we've done our bit to build a plant. The assembly plant can handle 14 airplanes a month. The supply chain can't. If there's anybody that needs the money out there, it's going to be that supply chain, and they're going to be going to the federal and provincial government to get it.
John, thank you. John Graddick joining us from Montreal.